Welcome to another episode of the Two Shots Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Garcia, and today we're going to be joined by the OG himself, none other than Jeff Garcia, the lead Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Jeff, it's been a long time since I've had you on. How you been?
I'm doing good, buddy. Thanks for having me back. Usually it's the other way around. See, I'm used to Joe coming on Lockdown Spurs, but Joe, he tends to take care of a lot of other things in Spurs. You got everything covered there from, what do you got, like pop culture to the Spurs, obviously. You got it all here, Joe. Congratulations on going outside the box in San Antonio and not just focusing on the Spurs.
Yeah, speaking of going outside the box, let's go ahead and get right into this discussion, because I shared something with you yesterday, and I saw that you did put it up on social media, and it was comical to us, both of us, because I'm like, it looks like, a local artist here, really prominent local artist here, Nike Soupe. He went ahead and added a new mural to the ever-growing Spurs murals over there at Rudy Seafood off of South Flores. And he put the mural up just probably within the last week of Victor Wembanyama in the Spurs uniform. And I was like, man, I mean, at least let the Spurs get a pick first. We don't even know what they're going to get. Are they going to get 1? Are they going to get 6? Are they going to come in somewhere in between? Right. We don't even know what order in the draft they're going to be, picking their probably their highest rated, rookie since, Tim Duncan. And they're already putting up murals of Victor Wembanyama. And the Spurs don't even know if they're going to get that number 1 pick. I mean, what were your first impressions when I shared that with you?
Right. Well, by the way, thanks for sending me that too. But my first thought was like, you're tempting fate here. You really are. You're messing with the basketball gods, the basketball universe. Perhaps the basketball gods are not going to be pleased by this move. I thought it was funny. I think I told you my reaction to you. Yeah. You sent it to me was no, way too soon. Too soon for this. But there's two sides of the coin here. It's either you're tempting fate or you're just putting good mojo out there in the universe. Yeah, so it goes either way. I thought it was ultimately just hilarious. And by the way, that mural, not only is it ever popular, it's also ever changing. Remember Kawhi was on that thing. DeMar DeRozan was on there. Who knows if DeJounte's probably gone already.
He even had Primo on there at one time.
Primo was on there. Yeah, so that thing is ever changing. But as far as the Wembanyama mural, I mean, I thought the guy went all out. The artist went above and beyond what he normally does. Now, Joe, we know that he just puts the bust. That's it, just the face. That's it in the uniform. Move on. But he went a step further and started putting paintings of Wembanyama's name all over that wall, including the Spurs name to Spurs around that. So if there's any intent of what he's trying to do is put that mojo out there for the Spurs to win the number 1 pick. But we got to remind everybody, Joe, they can have the worst pick in the worst record in the NBA. It's only a 14% chance among 2 other teams.
Yeah, that those are the odds that you're looking at right now. And the other day too, I was doing a Spurs cast with our friend Paul Garcia, and we have this funny little thing that we do where we go into the tankathon and we try to do the simulation. How many tries does it take for the Spurs to get the number 1 pick? And I think this time the Spurs finally got the number 1 pick after I think it was the 10th or the 11th try. So even at 14%, it's like it's no guarantee, because again, we're just running the simulator, and it took 10 or 11 tries for the Spurs to get that first pick. So that kind of shows you it's kind of like luck of the draw. You never know what's going to happen. Either you're going to get it or you're not, or another team's going to sneak in and get it. And unfortunately for the Spurs, it seems like Utah keeps pushing them further back, comes out of nowhere. So it's just one of those things. But I think Spurs fans are just looking for something to get excited about, given the state of the season. And they've not been very good. They're one of the worst teams in the NBA. And we're going to get into that discussion right here, because, I mean, currently for this week, the Spurs, I mean, we're going to go from March the 10th all the way up until their most recent loss. But the Spurs won against the Nuggets on March 10th. They won 128-120. Nuggets are one of the better teams in the NBA, And then against the Thunder, they lost 102-90. Then they beat the Magic, which the Magic aren't really that great anyway, 132-114. and they finished their they're going to finish their week out here, but they're finishing the weekend, the week they're starting to end it here with 2 back-to-back losses. You had that loss against the Mavericks in overtime on March the 15th, which was Wednesday. And then on Friday, you went ahead and had the Spurs lose again in OT against the Grizzlies, 126-120. And this was a game where the Spurs were up by 29 points, Jeff. And they come back and lose the game in the waning last minute of the fourth quarter, because for all that, Spurs fans are clamoring about with Zach Collins, he played like booty crumbs in that last minute. He had some mistakes that were costly and actually cost the Spurs the game. So what are your thoughts on the week that was Spurs basketball, especially those overtime losses?
Well, we definitely learned a lot. I think one thing that I learned about this team in the last several games was the idea of a what if, Joe. What if this team had remained intact, meaning no major injuries that we saw with Devin Vassell, no trades, Jakob and Josh Richardson still here. Maybe even Primo doesn't, do what he did allegedly and get himself the boot out of the franchise. That could this team have been by now kind of one of those really dangerous lower seed Western Conference teams that could have put the fear into teams like a Denver. I think there could have been something there. Sochan has exploded, into what he is now. Really eye opening for somebody who we didn't think that he was going to do this. Coming out of Baylor, he was just relegated to the third, fourth option. Now he's nearly a primary option in San Antonio, and he's paying out. So that's one thing I learned is the what if scenario. Could this team have been, obviously they would have been a lot better than the current record, but could they have been even knocking on a play-in door? But if you go into that universe, that multiverse, Joe, then you would have had Spurs fans fighting about, well, they're being mediocre again. You look at that, they're a middling team. They're not going to get a high pick. What are you doing? You got to mess this up for Wembanyama. So it's interesting to see what could have been if this team had remained at full power and didn't have any major roster disruptions. Second thing I also learned too is they're starting to click a little bit. They're starting to get it individually, especially. There's Sochan. We talked about him. You know this. I know this. Your listeners, Joe, know this. He's really coming on gangbusters. Zach Collins, another thing I learned. Finally healthy, getting the minutes, and now that Pirtle's gone, he's absorbing those minutes and really panning out to be, let's not forget, Joe, he was a top 10 pick. He was a lottery pick by Portland. So he's really turned into it, and dare I say, knocking down the three, perhaps making things very interesting into the offseason with him, Bassie, who else? If knocking, crossing fingers, Joe, here they get Wembanyama, that could be an interesting trio of bigs the Spurs will have next season. Again, if the basketball gods smile on the Spurs and they get the number 1 pick, and not frown on the Spurs for having a mural of Wembanyama in San Antonio. But Joe, overall, I think there's something here with this team. They're just missing something. They need that guy, that player, that go-to person that's going to put them on the back and shoulder them to wins. They're that far away. They're just that away, Joe, and that could be answered in the upcoming NBA draft lottery.
It could be, just depending on where the chips fall for the San Antonio Spurs. But even if the Spurs were entirely healthy, let's say they didn't have any injuries, and of course you had the trades that did happen with Josh Richardson and
Pirtle,
Jakob Pirtle. Yeah. So that kind of changed the dynamic of your starting 5 and also your bench, because Josh Richardson was one of the better bench players the Spurs had, and it showed. The Spurs had one of the better benches as far as performance goes early on in the season. But now later on in the season, with, of course, Josh Richardson now no longer coming off the bench, I think things have kind of settled down a little bit more, and it kind of showing you really what the Spurs have here. And even if they were all healthy, they still would have been competitive, I think, more competitive than they had shown, but it still would have amounted to about the same amount of wins. Now, I think Spurs fans were clamoring not because of, so much the rebuild, but because of the quality of the product that was out there on the court due to the injuries, due to Coach Pop sitting certain players out. There was no cohesiveness. And I think that's one of the things that Spurs fans were clamoring about pretty much, the whole season here, is that the Spurs just didn't seem competitive at all. But now with the team starting to settle down, getting, being I guess getting in a rhythm, and also you're having that still to deal with Coach Pop sitting out certain players, Keldon Johnson or Jeremy Sohan, whether it be Devin Vassell, you still don't have that, from night to night, this is going to be your starting lineup. You already know, hey, these are going to be your starting five for the next couple of games. Things are still changing. Even given that, they've still remained competitive, even though they are losing. You look at these last two games that they lost against the Mavericks and the Grizzlies. They remained competitive. And at one point, they even had the lead against the Grizzlies. They just can't close. They have trouble inbounding the ball when the opposing team is starting to put that defensive pressure on them. It shows, their let's say ineffectiveness shows.
Oh, that just highlights exactly what this team has been going through this year, is learning lessons, taking those lumps. And they're still taking lumps even towards the end of the season already. That is having to learn to hold on to a freaking 29-point lead, Joe. Things like that, valuing possessions, not costing turnovers late in the game, things like that, finishing at the rim. But that's just part of the process. And this is the process. That's why Brett Brown is here. He's been through the process one time, and now he's in another process. You're good. Now, don't be too, surprised by this next season, Spurs fans, that perhaps there'll still be some growing pains. But I think the growing pains will be far and few between as they get an experience. Again, looking at Sohan, it's a great idea. I mean, Joe, we already had post-game conferences with some of the veteran players like a McDermott say, yeah, we kind of miss Sohan, a rookie in these tight games and the overtime games versus, like, for example, the recent one versus Memphis. So that should be a good sign. If an NBA veteran is seeing the value of a rookie on this current team and pulling out wins, that bodes well for the Spurs' future.
Yeah, it does. It shows that, they are missing some pieces, and, hopefully, if the team can remain intact here, good things will happen. They'll remain more competitive. Maybe they might be even so more competitive so that they might actually start winning games instead of just, hey, they were competitive, but they lost another one. Hey, it was a close game, but they lost another one. You want to see them go ahead and start translating what they've been learning in these losses and having that translate into actual wins. I think that's the game plan for the team moving forward. We're just going to have to see exactly where they're going to fall in the NBA draft lottery, and if they're going to, in fact, get that number 1 pick, or they're going to fall to 6. Because I think right now the lowest that they can go would probably be that 6th spot if they continue to be on this current trajectory for wins. They're probably going to be the 2nd or 3rd worst team in the NBA. So we'll just see where the chips fall, Jeff. But the Spurs do have a game coming up here, and they're going to have San Antonio's prodigal son return, and that's going to be DeJounte Murray. And there's been a lot of discussions here with DeJounte and how Spurs fans are feeling about him, because we've seen him on that All the Smoke podcast making comments about how he was treated. And then, of course, the infamous exit that he had, saying that the Spurs are going to be losing for the next 15 seasons. I mean, what do you think the reception is going to be, Jeff, when him and the Atlanta Hawks start coming into to San Antonio to play here in front of the hometown crowd?
Yeah, I think it's going to be mixed. I think you're going to definitely hear smattering of boos, but you're going to hear the cheering. I mean, there are, I would say, a bulk of Spurs fans that are not too pleased with his exit. Not necessarily how he exited, getting traded, because, 3 first-round picks, not too bad. But it's then the aftermath. It's the, speaking with Steven Jackson, the Instagram exchange he had with the fans, the 15 years comment, it's bigger than basketball in San Antonio, the mind games that they play with him. But he spoke with San Antonio media before today's game, and he doubled down, not necessarily, the negative comments, because he was very clear that he loves San Antonio. He loves the Spurs organization, that, he treasures the time he had with Popovich, that he still keeps in contact with his former Spurs teammates, but he didn't back down from, saying, like, I'm sorry for what I said. He just said that, hey, at the end of the day, I'm human. I want to, just speak what I feel. So, it's difficult to read, because if this was his experience in San Antonio, then that was his experience. But at the same time, perhaps, as your mom said, Joe, keep things to yourself sometimes. You have nothing
Yeah.
nice to say, don't say anything at all. But I think you're definitely going to hear boos. You're going to hear boos. And it's unfortunate, but Spurs fans don't forget. I don't even know if they forgive. They still haven't forgiven Kawhi Leonard, have they?
No, they're never going to forgive Kawhi.
Yeah. So don't cross Spurs fans, if you're a former player. And it's unfortunate that things turned that way after he traded in this case. Again, not because he was traded, it's because of what happened afterwards, because now the fan base is soured on him. There's a lot of fans right now on social media saying that he should get the business tonight in the AT&T, as far as letting them feel exactly what he felt like. And they make some points, Why is it that you say on your return to San Antonio, I love the Spurs, I love Pop, I love the organization, but the next time you're outside, you're on a podcast with Steven Jackson and you're making these comments about your time there. So flip-flop. Sounds like it's a lot of flip-flopping.
Yeah, it kind of does. If you really enjoyed your time here, then why would you go on, a nationally syndicated podcast, that's going to have a large viewership and start bashing your former team? I mean, if you had mutual love for them, and respect, why go to that length? It's kind of like, hey, I'm going to talk about you behind your back, but when I see you in person, it's nothing but love. Hey, man, it's great to see you. I love you, this and that. But as soon as I'm away from you, I'm going to go ahead and have some things to say, even though I just can't say it to your face. So it's kind of that childish game. It's like, no, man, just own it. Yeah, you said it. He doubled down and said, yeah, I said this, so hopefully they can just put this thing behind them, and Spurs fans will just hopefully see.
The good news is that Atlanta only comes to San Antonio once a year.
Yeah.
So DeJounte won't have to go through this again for a while after tonight.
And you did have an article that you put up recently too. I think it was yesterday over on Can's Live, and they can go ahead and check that out. And Jeff went and put some of the excerpts, from the media asking him questions, and him saying that he was excited just to be back in the city. He spent a lot of years here. He put in from being all the way from Seattle, coming all the way to San Antonio, and he kind of said San Antonio will always be home for him. And to see the other comments that he had here, go and check out Jeff's article over at kens5.com. You can't miss it, because it's going to be all about DeJounte.
Can't miss it. But, and then, of course, the Spurs are going to rebuild. And, like as of this recording, the chances are the Spurs will probably lose. And so Spurs fans are not going to be able to get a double whammy, get to boo DeJounte, for those that want to, and see him walk off with an L. So, I don't know. Maybe it might make for a good night in that aspect, Joe, if that does happen.
Yeah, maybe stranger things can happen. If the Spurs were going to win a game, I mean, come on, it would have had to have been the Alamo Dome game. But they got blown out of the water against the Warriors. Now, if you want to redeem yourself, to the fans, this would be the game to win. In front of the hometown crowd, you got the enemy, the evil empire coming in, the Atlanta Hawks with one DeJounte Murray. This would be the game to set things right in Spurs fans' eyes. They wanted a game. This would be one of the two games that they wanted the Spurs to win. So we can only hope that the Spurs will right the wrong and, put those two overtime losses behind them and find a way to beat DeJounte Murray and the Hawks here in front of the hometown crowd.
Right. Yeah.
To me, that would be what they have 2 games here at the AT&T Center left after this one. You got to win. You got to win this one, man. I mean, you got to.
Can you believe the season's already over? In my opinion, Joe, I think the real season is going to begin when the regular season's over. Because then I think I'm excited for that, because I think a good chunk of Spurs fans already checked out of the season.
Oh, yeah. Hey, it's so bad, Jeff. It's so bad. I have an email that the Spurs sent me, right? And they're like, hey, we noticed that you went and bought tickets to go see the games this year. We're going to send you a special link. Click on this special link so you can buy one of the last 2 remaining games for the, to be played here at the AT&T Center. And they're discounted tickets at that, Jeff. And they're going to go ahead and sweeten the deal by giving you some little perks. I think one of the last 2 home games is going to be a T-shirt, and the other one's going to be a coffee book. So basically they want you to go. Like, come on, please come out and see the games.
Yeah, and by the way, Spurs fans need to embrace the last minutes, the last games of the City Edition Fiesta jerseys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I reported that recently on social media because I have been noticing the Spurs have been using this interesting phrase throughout the season. Every time it was related to the City Edition jerseys, it was always with a caveat. It was the last of the trilogy, the last of the trilogy. That's all you kept on hearing was the last of the trilogy. And I was like, what? And then it finally got to me. I was like, okay, what the H does this mean? So I reached out to a source within the Spurs and I asked the person, I said, so it's no secret y'all are saying something without saying something about these City Edition Fiesta jerseys. So what is it? And then I was explained that, yeah, this is it. There will be no more City Edition Fiesta themed jerseys after this season. It's done.
Okay. No, I mean, I'm sure they're going to wind up doing something else.
But here's the key. Here's the key. Here's the key. What if the different direction is that the Fiesta jersey then becomes the primary jersey and the City Edition just gets a new look? So they're not getting rid of the Fiesta colors. They just said they're just not going to be in the City Edition alt jersey. They didn't say they're getting rid of the colors completely. So I think that's kind of like the ace up their sleeve. They go, no, we said it's over for the City Edition Fiesta jerseys, not for any other of the alt jerseys.
Oh, see, look at here, Jeff Garcia breaking news here.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, that's a good little tip. Something to definitely keep an eye on. But are you going to wind up getting your Fiesta jersey, the last of the trilogy? You're going to wind up getting one that says Garcia on the back?
I regret not getting the first one. The black.
Oh,
yeah. I regret not getting that one because I have the one in the middle, which was last year's, that kind of brighter white looking one. Like sherbet.
Black one.
Yeah. But I didn't get this year's. This year's City Edition, the aqua looking one. But yeah, so something to keep in mind. I hope they just don't get rid of the classic editions. Those are still my favorite.
Yeah, but they're still going to have the Fiesta themed merch, no doubt.
Yeah,
they're going to have t-shirts, hoodies, that kind of stuff. You're going to be able to get it at the fan shop, either at AT&T Center, at the shops, at La Cantera, the Spurs store that they have over there. It's always going to be available for purchase, and also on the NBA store, at the NBA.com. You're going to probably be able to pick up your merch there. But yeah, it's the end of the trilogy. It's on to something new, and I think it's good, for the team to kind of keep things fresh. You want to keep things moving. You don't want it to get stale, and I think there's only so many, different variations you can do before you're like, okay, let's try something different. So I think it's time. But honestly, if they did a City Edition and it was just iconic, just silver and black, color scheme, I would not be mad with that. That's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
And what about you? You like that iconic silver and black, the throwback that they did this year with the Gervin, with the San Antonio font on it?
Oh yeah, I had been wanting those for years.
Yeah,
the years to come back. I think those are just. I mean, how do you not incorporate them year round? That's my question. It's like it's so awesome. Now let's be honest, Joe. They're not an exact duplicate of the ABA look. The ABA look was not completely black on black. It had the white lettering. It had like white border on the lettering. Go back, look at the old Gervin classic. Well, in their time, the ABA edition. They're not an exact duplicate of today's classic edition, but it's very close, very, very close. But nevertheless, I like the fact that they did that, paid homage. As the season went on, the statement jersey kind of grew on me a little bit. They didn't use them a lot. They weren't really trotted out plenty of times, but I guess, I think that's where I came up to. At first, I was like, oh, hell no. Now I'm like, yeah, I guess.
Hey, I was going to ask you as we start bringing this thing to a close. I know a lot of Spurs fans have had a lot of chatter on social media when Mamu had his breakout game, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, don't you dare say that. Don't disrespect Manu. It's like, we didn't say Manu. We said Mamu.
Mamu, yeah.
Mamu, and he's been playing pretty good, He's he's an Italian, I believe. And he's just been, I guess, winning the hearts over, over here with Spurs fans. What are your first impressions of Mamu? I mean, what do you think about the kid?
You know what my first impression was, and it has nothing to do with him being as a player, which so far it looks like he's a pretty nice player, is that we've been through this before with other past bigs that we fall in love with. Boban fell in love with him, he's gone. Jock Landale fell in love with him, he's gone. Baines fell in love with him, he left. And now here we have another big. We're gonna fall in love with him, and he's likely gonna leave. That was my first thought. Like, do we get attached to him? Do we go down that route? Didn't we learn our lesson with these bigs? But if he's here, at least for this season, and then a little bit to next season, who knows what happens in his future? Solid player. Definitely can pass the ball. Big. He can hit the outside shot. Young. He's been with the Buck system before coming to San Antonio, which means Budenholzer. So he's familiar a little bit with that same Popovich system style that Budenholzer took with him to Milwaukee. And I don't know, I think he fits the timeline, but it just, will he last long? That's my question. Will he go the way of Boban and Jock Landau? Because you know how Spurs fans get attached to these bigs, Joe?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Boban is still, very near and dear to a lot of Spurs fans here. I mean, he even went on the Spurs podcast that they have here with Bill Schoening, and Bill interviewed him, and he said he still has a signed jersey, and he feels honored to be able to say that he's played with Coach Pop and
Sure.
Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and all the big three. So he has mutual respect here, and the fans just love him and his bigger than life personality. So yeah, definitely.
Oh, for sure. And here's the thing too, is that I know we're talking about jerseys a little while ago. I don't think I'm going to be investing in a Mamu jersey, Joe, just in case. Just in case. I think that'd be a bad investment considering how past bigs have come and gone in San Antonio.
Yeah, just put Garcia on the back. I mean, you'll be good.
Well, I have a classic edition jersey with my last name on it, but I'm sitting here just regretting, why didn't I get that first edition of the Fiesta Spurs themed jersey? Of the 3 Spurs Fiesta themed jersey, those are the best. The original one that came out a couple years ago. Those are still the best ones.
You can probably still find them somewhere off of Marbach or Military, on the side of the road somewhere.
There's one near me near South Cross, so I'm fine. I know where to get them.
Yeah, there you go, dude. I just saw one too. They have a sports themed shop here at Ingram Mall, the infamous Ingram Mall. And I was just there on Friday with my son, and we passed by, and they had a whole bunch of Spurs merch and stuff in there. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like, you're looking for something other than just a normal fanfare, go to one of these little shops here, and they always have something new, something exciting and different, so
yeah,
it's good that the tradition
or even like those Mitchell and Ness. Sometimes they have, in my opinion, more hits. They have hits. Sometimes they can really have some misses, though. I've seen some ones that by Mitchell and Ness. Like, what were you guys thinking?
Oh yeah,
like,
they're pretty.
Yeah. I was like, what are these? But for the most part, they tend to trot out some good jerseys.
Yeah. So right before we end this show, I just want to let you know, Jeff, that I was privy to go and see a screener of John Wick. It's not coming out until, I believe, the 25th of March. And I saw it this last week, and I got to tell you, Jeff, it was really good. If you're looking for a movie to see, something different besides the Marvel fanfare, I would recommend John Wick. I mean, we have our non-spoiler review is out currently. It's over at the countdowncitygeeks.com website. So make sure you check that out. And also check out the YouTube channel and the Facebook page. It's all Countdown City Geeks. So if you want to see the non-spoiler review I did with my buddy Ted there, and go ahead and check that out. So just want to throw that out there, Jeff. You're looking for something to watch here that's not Marvel related. I recommend that movie. Do you see anything recently that you had the privy to go and see a screen or anything?
Not at the theater, but I highly recommend, if you need a break from the MCU but still stay within the MCU and get something fresh, different, and just new, go check out Moon Girl, the animated show on Disney Plus. Okay. It's like, you're like, oh, finally something different. That's what it feels like. It's not the same formula. It's not the same, rinse, repeat thing that MCU does on the theater, but on the small screen, you'll like it. Now, at first you're gonna look at it, Joe, and you'll be like, "What is this? It's like a kitty looking thing," and it is. Yeah, the animation is very kitty. It's a throwback to the '90s style of animation. Think of the Proud Family, but it has it has the look of the Spider-Verse Miles Morales movie. A lot of that type of vibe into it. The music is good. And get this, Joe, you actually see the hero, in this case, Moon Girl, actually take L's. Take
Oh
L's.
wow.
Like big L's. And now, sure, are they couched for a kid's audience? Yeah, but the adult can see, like, oh, wow, the character actually lost. Like, this is
Yeah.
good. This is refreshing. Um, and it's fun. It's vibrant, very colorful. It sucks you in. Are there moments where you're thinking, like, I'm just watching a little teen kids, girls, boys, and girls show? Yeah, you are. But it's good. And we finally get the MCU's debut of the Beyonder. Finally
Nice.
makes his entry. It's a really good show. I think a lot of the reviews, Joe, have been around, if scale of 1 through 10, about 8s and up. And so it's really, really good. I highly recommend that one.
Yeah. Well, I'll make sure I'll go and check that one out. I'm going to be
Yeah.
busy here because I got a new schedule at work. So we're going to have to either record early for Two Shots and for Los.
Locked
or
on
we're gonna
Spurs,
have
I
to go
know.
early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe's good about that. He'll let me know exactly his schedule is. But yeah, when he comes on Los, yeah, he comes back. And what gets me, Joe, is that you be gone for a while, and I get people asking me, like, where's Joe? How come he's not coming back? I'm like, it's not that. He's busy. He's just
I'm working.
Yeah, he's just busy. So you got a little bit of a fan base there on Los.
Oh, thanks, man. It's always good to be on Los. So look forward to the next time I get to be on your show. But thank you so much for.
Well, the thing about it too is they think it's me not inviting you. I'm like, no,
Oh,
he's invited at least once, twice every 2 weeks. He gets busy.
Yeah. I mean, he does invite me. Sometimes I can't make it because I'm busy. So
Yeah, exactly.
there's no love lost here between us, man. Trust me.
No, nothing like
I'm just
that. Nothing
busy.
like that.
I'm just busy.
I try to work with Joe as best I can.
Yeah. Exactly. So Jeff, thank you so much for coming out and being a guest here on Two Shots. I know it's a little different because you're always hosting, so a little change of pace for you here.
It's all good, man. It's all good. I appreciate you inviting me, buddy.
Yeah, so make sure you go and follow Jeff. Jeff Garcia on Twitter. Great follow, very knowledgeable when it comes to San Antonio Spurs basketball. He puts out great content, so go ahead and give him some love. So for Jeff Garcia, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you guys again for watching and listening to another episode of the Two Shots podcast. And like we always say, spread the love, stop the hate, be kind. We're out. Peace.